Maria Santos, a young Filipina housekeeper, and Prince Khalid, a powerful Dubai royal, were drawn into a secret affair that promised luxury and passion. But what began as forbidden desire would spiral into fear, betrayal, and a shocking murder that shook two nations. Maria Santos stepped off the plane, clutching a small suitcase and a worn passport that had carried her dreams across continents. The heat of Dubai hit her immediately, a dry, almost harsh warmth that made the gleaming city shimmer like a mirage. For years, she had imagined this moment, leaving behind the narrow streets of Manila, the crowded markets, and the constant struggle to make ends meet. Here, among the towering skyscrapers and luxury cars, she believed she could finally build a life of opportunity, stability, and dignity, not just for herself, but for her family who had sacrificed so much to see her succeed. Her first days were exhausting. Long hours cleaning rooms in a five-star hotel left her body aching, but Maria moved with determination. Every polished marble floor, every crisp linen, every gleaming glass surface reminded her that she had entered a world far removed from anything she had known. The hotel's grandeur was almost overwhelming. The lobby chandeliers reflected sunlight like diamonds, and the scent of fresh flowers lingered in every corridor. Maria marveled at the guests, wealthy travelers who moved with ease, their conversations in languages she barely understood. Despite the beauty around her, there was a subtle tension in the air, an unspoken hierarchy that reminded her of her place. Staff whispered about the powerful guests who stayed in the penthouse suites, about the things they could afford, and about the walls that seemed to watch her every move. Maria tried to push the unease aside, focusing instead on the promise of financial independence and the hope that she could one day return home and change her family's life forever. Yet, beneath her excitement, a small seed of caution began to grow, a sense that the city's glittering exterior might hide dangers far beyond anything she had imagined. By the end of her first week, Maria had learned to navigate the hotel with quiet precision, carrying herself like someone who belonged even when she did not. Every step brought her closer to a future filled with possibilities, and unknowingly, closer to a dark encounter that would alter her life forever. Maria's routine continued, each day blending into the next as she moved through the hotel's polished corridors. She had memorized every turn, every stairwell, every hidden corner where guests might pass unnoticed. It was during one of these routine cleaning rounds that she first encountered Prince Khalid. He was unlike anyone she had ever seen, a man whose presence commanded attention without effort. His tailored suit, impeccable grooming, and quiet confidence set him apart from the hotel's usual wealthy clientele. Maria felt a jolt of nervous excitement, aware that this encounter, though brief, was unlike any she had experienced before. He had been inspecting one of the suites, alone, and when he noticed her, he offered a small, polite nod. Maria hesitated, unsure whether to acknowledge him beyond a curt greeting. But there was something in his gaze, a subtle warmth, almost human, beneath the layers of aristocratic detachment, that made her heart beat faster. From that moment, her days seemed to take on a new rhythm. She found herself imagining the prince beyond the hotel's walls, wondering what his life was like behind the glittering veil of wealth and power. Their meetings grew more frequent, though still brief and secretive. The prince seemed to take an unusual interest in her, asking questions about her background, her family, and her dreams. Maria, careful but intrigued, answered cautiously, feeling a mixture of fear and fascination. Every interaction left her with a thrill she could not explain, as if stepping into a world that existed just out of reach, full of possibilities yet shadowed with risk. Maria began to sense that this connection could change everything. The prince's charm was intoxicating, and the luxury surrounding him seemed almost tangible, like something she could touch if she dared. Yet beneath the allure, a faint unease lingered, a whisper that this world of privilege could conceal dangers far greater than she had ever imagined. The encounter that seemed accidental was already beginning to shape her destiny. The meetings between Maria and Prince Khalid soon evolved from casual encounters into a carefully hidden affair. They found secluded spots around the city, quiet cafes tucked away on narrow streets, the shaded gardens of private clubs, even discreet corners of the hotel itself. Each rendezvous was charged with excitement, a mix of fear and longing that made every stolen moment feel urgent. Maria felt alive in ways she had never experienced, yet a constant shadow of anxiety followed her, reminding her that this connection was dangerous and forbidden. Khalid's world was intoxicating. He showed her parts of Dubai few outsiders ever saw. The private yachts docked in hidden marinas, the exclusive lounges where the elite discussed deals and power in hushed tones. Maria watched him move effortlessly through this world, admired by all, feared by many. She felt a strange sense of awe, realizing that her life, once confined to modest streets and crowded apartments, had suddenly expanded into a realm of unimaginable luxury. But with every glance, every secret smile, she also noticed the underlying tension in Khalid. The flashes of temper, the sharpness of his gaze when interrupted, the subtle reminders that his wealth gave him control over nearly everyone around him. Despite the danger, Maria could not resist the allure of their connection. She began keeping her own small secrets, learning how to navigate the delicate balance between desire and self-preservation. Each meeting left her with a heightened awareness of the stakes, a careful calculation of risks she had never considered before. Friends at the hotel began to notice changes in her, her distracted expressions, the occasional distant smile. But Maria said nothing, guarding the affair like a fragile flame against the wind. The thrill of love intertwined with fear, creating a tension she could not escape. Maria knew that each stolen moment with Khalid brought her closer to a reality that was both intoxicating and dangerous, a line between passion and peril that she might one day cross with irreversible consequences. Maria felt a wave of shock and disbelief when she discovered she was pregnant. At first, she couldn't fully process the news, staring at the tiny positive sign with trembling hands. Her mind raced through possibilities and fears. This child was a symbol of love and hope, yet in the same breath, it represented danger and uncertainty. She thought of Khalid, of the secret moments they had shared, and wondered how he would react. The reality of her situation pressed heavily on her chest. She had to protect herself and the baby, yet every decision carried enormous risk. For days, Maria moved through the hotel in a daze, her secret growing within her. Every routine task felt heavier, as if the floors she polished and the sheets she changed could not distract her from the life forming inside her. She imagined the future, returning home to her family with the news of a child, perhaps even finding a way to make Khalid take responsibility. But each scenario was shadowed by doubt, fear, and the possibility of rejection. She realized the prince's charm was not a guarantee of protection. His power could turn dangerous in an instant. Khalid's behavior began to shift subtly. His visits became more intense, his interest mingled with control. He asked questions that carried an edge, subtly reminding Maria of the consequences of defiance. The luxury and excitement she had once felt now carried a chill, as if the same glittering world that had drawn her in could just as easily entrap her. Maria wrestled with her emotions, torn between the hope of love and the instinct to survive. Each passing day heightened the stakes, and she knew that revealing her pregnancy could ignite a storm. The life inside her had become a secret of immense value, a fragile treasure she had to guard with every ounce of courage, even as the danger around her silently grew. Maria began noticing subtle changes in her surroundings, small signs that something was not as it seemed. Whispers floated through the hotel corridors, conversations that stopped abruptly whenever she approached. She felt eyes on her, heavy and unrelenting, following her movements even when she believed herself alone. Packages she did not recognize occasionally appeared near her locker, items left carelessly or intentionally within her reach. Each occurrence made her heart race, a reminder that her secret affair and pregnancy could no longer remain hidden if someone chose to expose them. Rumors started spreading among staff and lower-level hotel employees. Some spoke of powerful guests who took advantage of young workers, while others whispered about the prince's reputation for demanding loyalty at any cost. Maria tried to brush off the warnings, focusing instead on keeping her job and protecting her unborn child. Yet the unease never left her, a persistent shadow lurking behind every polished corridor and gleaming marble floor. Even Khalid seemed different, more calculated in his attention. His charm was now interlaced with subtle reminders of his power, mentions of his influence, veiled threats in otherwise casual remarks. Maria realized that her fate was increasingly tied to his moods and decisions. Every glance from him carried potential danger, every invitation to meet a hidden risk. Despite the growing tension, Maria refused to let fear dominate her life. She moved cautiously, changing routines, avoiding areas where she felt vulnerable, and observing those around her for clues about loyalty or betrayal. The city's bright lights and luxurious facade could not mask the truth she had begun to see. In a world ruled by wealth and privilege, even small missteps could have devastating consequences. The threat was no longer distant. It was real, pressing in from all sides, and Maria knew that she had to act carefully to survive. Khaled's demeanor had grown colder in recent weeks, his charm now laced with subtle menace. One afternoon, he summoned Maria to a private meeting in a secluded part of the hotel, a location that once felt intimate but now seemed suffocating. As she entered, she sensed the shift immediately. The warm, playful energy that had defined their secret encounters was gone, replaced by a quiet intensity that set her nerves on edge. His eyes, sharp and calculating, seemed to weigh every movement she made, every word she might speak. Without raising his voice, Khaled delivered an ultimatum that left Maria reeling. He made it clear that their affair could no longer continue, that her pregnancy was an unacceptable complication, and that she had to leave Dubai or face consequences she could not imagine. The words were measured, but the threat underlying them was unmistakable. Maria's mind raced, weighing the terrifying possibilities of defiance against the heartbreak of leaving everything behind. She realized that the luxurious world she had once been drawn into now threatened to crush her with its power and influence. Fear and desperation settled over her like a heavy fog. Every plan she had made suddenly felt fragile, every hope for a future with Khaled impossible. Yet, leaving was not simple. She had no immediate escape, no allies who could guarantee her safety. She was trapped between two worlds, the dazzling city she had dreamed of, and the shadowed reality of a man whose wealth and status gave him control over nearly everyone around her. Maria spent hours alone, wrestling with the enormity of the decision before her. The city outside, still sparkling under the relentless sun, felt indifferent to her plight. She realized that every step she took from this moment forward could be critical, that survival would require courage, cunning, and the ability to navigate a perilous world where one wrong move could have deadly consequences. Maria knew she could not rely on anyone within the hotel to protect her. The staff, loyal to the powerful guests and wary of repercussions, kept their distance, leaving her to navigate the danger alone. Determined to safeguard herself and her unborn child, she began quietly devising a plan. Every decision had to be cautious, every action discreet. She started documenting her encounters with Khaled, taking mental notes of conversations, threats, and the subtle ways he had tried to control her. Each detail was a potential shield, a lifeline should the situation spiral out of control. She sought advice from a local lawyer known for handling sensitive cases, careful to conceal her identity and the depth of her involvement. Their meetings were brief and guarded, held in nondescript offices far from the hotel's gaze. Maria learned the importance of evidence, messages, photographs, witnesses, and slowly began gathering whatever proof she could without arousing suspicion. She memorized every route, every exit, and every quiet corner where she might speak freely or make an urgent call if danger arose. Paranoia became a constant companion. She noticed small changes in the hotel staff's behavior, subtle signs that someone might be watching her more closely than before. Anonymous warnings appeared, sometimes in notes slipped under her door, other times through the hurried words of co-workers who seemed anxious to avoid trouble. Each warning heightened her vigilance, reinforcing the knowledge that Khaled's influence reached far and wide. Despite the fear and constant pressure, Maria felt a flicker of empowerment. Every step she took to protect herself, every secret she documented, was a small victory. She was learning to navigate the perilous balance between secrecy and survival, understanding that her unborn child depended on her cunning as much as her courage. The stakes had never been higher, and the shadows around her seemed to tighten with each passing day. Maria's heart pounded as she approached the suite for what she knew might be the last time. Each step felt heavier than the last, her mind racing with every possible outcome. The opulent hallway, once a symbol of excitement and allure, now felt cold and threatening. She had rehearsed her words, her demeanor, and her escape routes. Yet the reality of facing Khalid alone made every plan seem fragile. The suite door loomed ahead, a gateway to danger she could not avoid. Inside, the room was immaculate, the same luxury she had once admired now oppressive and suffocating. Khalid stood near the window, the sunlight catching the gold accents of his attire, casting sharp reflections across the floor. There was a quiet intensity in his posture, a tension that Maria recognized immediately as a warning. His eyes, usually warm and magnetic, were now sharp and unreadable, assessing her, weighing her every move. Maria felt a chill, realizing the man she had secretly loved carried a capacity for cold calculation she had only glimpsed before. The conversation, though brief, was heavy with unspoken threats. Khalid's words were precise, each one carefully chosen to remind Maria of the power he wielded, the influence that reached far beyond the suite walls. Maria tried to maintain composure, but inside, fear surged like a storm. She sensed that any misstep, any hesitation, could provoke consequences beyond her imagination. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, yet she remained, driven by hope, desperation, and the fragile belief that reason might prevail. The room seemed to shrink around her, the air thick with tension. Maria understood, in that silent, suffocating moment, that the world she had once been drawn into, the glamour, the luxury, the forbidden passion, was a world that could also consume her entirely. The encounter that began with anticipation now teetered on the edge of danger, a precipice from which there might be no return. The quiet tension of the suite shattered in an instant. What Maria had feared, the consequences of defiance and the fragility of her situation, arrived with brutal clarity. In a sudden, violent moment, her life was ended, executed with precision that left no room for escape. The room, once filled with whispered promises and stolen glances, became a scene of horror. The luxury surrounding her, silken sheets, polished floors, golden accents, stood in stark contrast to the violence that had just occurred, a chilling reminder that wealth could mask cruelty as easily as it could allure. Outside the suite, the city continued its rhythm, indifferent to the tragedy hidden within its walls. Guests wandered hallways, unaware that a life had been extinguished just steps away, that a young woman with hopes, dreams, and a child growing inside her had been silenced. The echoes of Maria's presence lingered in the air, the faint scent of her perfume, the subtle marks of her recent movements, but the vibrant spark she carried was gone. The prince moved quickly, using his influence to contain the situation. Staff were redirected, evidence was carefully managed, and the narrative of a disappearance rather than a murder began to take shape. The tools of wealth and status became shields, masking the truth and ensuring that few would question the official story. Within hours, whispers began to circulate, a mix of speculation and fear. Hotel employees exchanged cautious glances, understanding that something terrible had occurred but fearing the consequences of speaking out. Internationally, Maria's family began to notice her absence, their worry growing with each passing hour. The brutality of her murder was not just physical. It was the obliteration of hope, a stark reminder that the allure of power could hide deadly danger. Maria's life, once full of dreams and determination, ended abruptly, leaving a haunting void that would ripple far beyond the walls of the suite. News of Maria's disappearance spread quickly, triggering a formal investigation. Local authorities arrived at the hotel, meticulously questioning staff and reviewing security footage. Yet the atmosphere was tense, heavy with unspoken fear. Employees spoke cautiously, aware that powerful figures were involved and that any misstep could have serious consequences. Investigators encountered roadblocks almost immediately, cameras that conveniently malfunctioned, logs that had gaps, and key witnesses who were suddenly unavailable. The influence of wealth and status was evident, and it complicated every step of the inquiry. Detectives worked tirelessly, piecing together the limited information they could access. They interviewed housekeeping staff, maintenance crews, and even delivery personnel, seeking anyone who might have noticed unusual activity. Some recalled seeing Maria enter the prince's private suite more frequently than usual, while others remembered her nervous glances and hushed conversations. But fear dominated the narrative, and most employees were reluctant to provide full details. Every lead seemed to vanish into a wall of silence, a reflection of the power and privilege shielding the prince. International attention began to grow, drawing journalists and advocates eager to uncover the truth. Reports hinted at foul play, painting a troubling picture of a young woman trapped between wealth, power, and secrecy. Yet despite public interest, the investigation moved slowly, hindered by bureaucratic constraints and the influence of elite protection. Evidence that could expose the truth remained hidden, and the complexity of pursuing justice against someone with such immense authority became painfully clear. Maria's family waited anxiously, desperate for answers that seemed just out of reach. Each day that passed without resolution intensified their grief and frustration. The investigation, though ongoing, revealed a chilling reality in a world ruled by wealth. Word of Maria's disappearance soon reached international media, sparking outrage and intense scrutiny. News outlets across the globe highlighted the story of a young Filipina housekeeper whose life had been brutally cut short, and the fact that a member of Dubai royalty was implicated sent shockwaves through public discourse. Human rights organizations and journalists began pressuring authorities to act, demanding transparency and accountability in a case that had quickly become a symbol of power abused and voices silenced. The story ignited a moral and legal debate. How could justice be served when wealth and privilege created layers of protection for the guilty? Advocates emphasized the vulnerability of migrant workers in foreign lands, pointing out that Maria's status as an outsider had made her easy prey for manipulation and exploitation. Social media amplified the outrage, with hashtags and posts drawing attention to the injustice and rallying international support for her family. Dubai authorities faced mounting pressure. Investigations that had moved slowly now became the subject of global scrutiny. Yet progress was fraught with obstacles. Witnesses remained hesitant, evidence was difficult to secure, and the prince's status continued to shield him from immediate accountability. Even as journalists uncovered small details of the affair and the circumstances leading up to Maria's death, the weight of influence and money slowed the path toward justice. Maria's family, thousands of miles away, were caught in the middle of grief and helplessness. Each news report was a reminder of the life lost and the challenges ahead. Her story became more than just a personal tragedy. It was a warning about the dangers of inequality, the misuse of power, and the cost of silence. Though the world watched and condemned the act, the fight for truth and justice remained ongoing, a complex battle in a landscape dominated by privilege and secrecy. Maria's death left a void that extended far beyond her immediate family. Her story became a haunting reminder of how wealth and power could shield perpetrators from consequences, and how vulnerable individuals could be exploited and silenced. Across the Philippines, her name sparked discussions about the safety of migrant workers abroad, the responsibilities of employers, and the hidden dangers behind seemingly glamorous lives. Advocacy groups used her story to push for stronger protections, better legal support, and awareness campaigns aimed at preventing similar tragedies. Her family, still grappling with grief, became determined to ensure her story would not be forgotten. They worked tirelessly to seek justice, reaching out to international organizations, journalists, and legal experts who could help expose the truth. The journey was fraught with frustration, as the barriers of influence, secrecy, and distance made each step painfully difficult. Yet, their resolve never wavered. In Maria's memory, they sought to give a voice to the voiceless, to challenge the systems that allowed such injustice to occur. Maria's story also left a chilling imprint on those who had crossed paths with her. Hotel staff and acquaintances were forced to confront the reality of how easily fear could silence witnesses, and how power could manipulate truth. The city's glittering exterior now carried a darker undertone, a reminder that beneath luxury and grandeur could lurk cruelty and danger. Though her life ended abruptly, Maria's legacy endured as a symbol of resilience and courage. Her story became a cautionary tale, illustrating the precarious line between hope and peril, love and manipulation. The memory of the pregnant housekeeper, whose dreams were stolen, continued to resonate, leaving an indelible mark on the hearts of those who followed her journey and reminding the world that the pursuit of justice often demands courage, persistence, and the refusal to be silenced.